Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel and to another Procreate video / tutorial, because I decided to follow your request that I do a step-by-step tutorial how to use this app, how to create a digital illustration in Procreate. So this is what we're gonna be doing today, and I will start off from showing you the essentials, which is the device. This is the iPad Pro, it's 10.5 inch, and here I have the Apple Pencil that is destined for Apple devices, for iPads, and well, the app that I'm using is called PROCREATE, like it is listed in title. And well, this is how it looks kind of when you open the new work. And well, now the essential question is what kind of brushes I'm gonna use. And well, despite the default brushes that Procreate has already, I only use one set of brush that I downloaded some time ago, and that is Blue Satan sketching brushes. I will link everything down in the description box so you can check it out for yourself. And basically the brushes that are my favorites are these two from her brush set, which is Smudge Brush and Lines Brush. And this Lines Brush is just perfect for my needs. I didn't find anything similar in the default brushes from Procreate, so once I bought this I was really happy because it's just perfect. And here I have my set of the brushes that I really like, but honestly from all of these I use mostly a Lines Brush, Medium Hard Brush and a Round Brush. So these are my three essentials. So now when we have those basics out of the way, we can move on to creating the actual illustration. Okay, so first of all, I'm making sure that I'm drawing on a new layer, and then I will begin with doing a rough sketch to indicate the proportions and so on. So I like to use this Lines brush that I mentioned before, and well, I'm taking this and, for example, some blue color like that. I'm making the brush a little bit bigger, and I'm gonna sketch like the general idea for my drawing. And when it comes to sketching, it's really personal thing. At the beginning of my, let's say, iPad journey, Procreate journey, I used a lot of references to kind of get used to sketching here and how the whole process of sketching and just drawing on iPad works. So I just put the picture on the layer underneath and I was kind of tracing on it. You can see that in my first Procreate video when I showed you how I kind of use references. It was a little bit of tracing, I can say this, but I don't think it's bad thing because it helped me to get the right proportions and it helped me to basically build my drawing in the correct way. And then later on I just adjusted the way I wanted, I changed it quite a lot, so I don't think that tracing, at least for the beginning, is a bad thing. It really helps you to get used to the app and it helps you to figure out your way of working. So for the beginning I think you can try doing that, but then once you get more used to the app you will be for sure able to figure out your own way of sketching, and you would definitely have more control over what you're doing and you would feel more free and more confident while sketching. And I also like to put quite some time in the sketching process because your sketch will kind of decide upon your final drawing result. And well, if you don't pay enough attention to how your sketch works, how your proportions are, you might end up with work that won't be dissatisfying to you because it will have quite many anatomical mistakes. This is what I assume might happen. So I would advise you to pay quite much attention to how your sketch works. And also here is a pro tip, and what I like to use to make sure that my sketch is correct. I just take this tool right here, then I'm flipping horizontally my canvas, and in this manner I can see if the proportions of my sketch are correct. I can fix some things because when you flip your canvas horizontally, then you're able to see how the drawing looks, well, flipped, and then you can notice the mistakes that you did and if there are even any, and it really helps you to fix your mistakes in your drawings. And also another great tool that I like to use is this warp tool, and then on your drawing you can see this kind of mesh appearing and you can just take the corners and kind of like squeeze the drawing into the direction that you want it works basically more or less like that. So I want this cheek to be a little bit more pushed to the side, so I'm just grabbing this mesh somewhat like here, and I'm just pushing it in a little bit so everything looks more natural. And once you're fine with this, you just flip your canvas horizontally once more to the previous position, and you're more or less done. And this is more or less how my initial sketch looks. Now I'm just gonna take the opacity of this layer to a little bit lower, like maybe 30%, and I'm gonna add one more layer over it. I'm taking deep black color, and then I'm staying with the same brush that I was doing the sketch with, lines brush. And now I'm just making my brush a little bit smaller, and now I'm just gonna go over the sketch, making it more refined and trying to get rid of excessive lines and make it look less messy. Now when my sketch is more or less done, I always like to hide the layer underneath, so I see if anything needs correction, if anything needs to be fixed. And I also like to take this layer and flip it horizontally, so I can once more make sure if I did everything correctly. And once you're happy with how your sketch is looking while it's flipped horizontally, you can go back to its previous position, and then you can perfect it. And this is what I'm gonna be doing now. I either take new layer and hide this one, I mean take the opacity down, and I'm refining it once more on a new layer, but this time I think I'm gonna work on the layer that I already have, and if there's excess of lines, I will just erase it, but I want to work on this sketch that I already have. And at this point of drawing, there's really not much explaining to do from my side, because what I'm doing right now is I'm just perfecting the whole drawing, so to the point that I'm happy with it. And I think I'm gonna leave my sketch at this point. I always can come back to it and add more on this sketch layer, so this is what I love about digital art. But I didn't make this sketch super refined. Like, for example, here my lines are still a little bit messy, but since you probably know from my traditional work, I don't like to make my outline super refined. I always like to come back to it afterwards, after I put the color down. So this is what I also use in the digital technique, so that's why I'm happy with this sketch so far, and now I'm gonna add some color. So now I'm gonna color the drawing, but first thing I need to do is I need to create a new layer, which I already have, and I need to throw it under the sketch layer, so our sketch will be kind of on top of colors. So I already have my color palette here, some skin tones, some lip colors, and probably I'm gonna use one of these. So once you picked your color, then I'm always picking my brush, and for coloring I like to use this round brush, and now I'm just filling in those large areas to kind of set up my color scheme for this drawing. So now the most difficult step in my opinion, shading and coloring in. So I'm taking the same color that I had for the whole face coloring, and I'm just taking a little bit darker shade, so I'm just pressing somewhere across, and with the same round brush I'm just putting the shadows in the places that I want shadows to be. And I'm doing it very loosely because you don't need to be super accurate with those places, because we're gonna blend everything out later on. And before blending, I like to take one step darker color and just put more shading on top of it. Now I'm taking one step darker and I'm just putting a little bit more in the areas that are really shaded and dark. And now I'm gonna do my first blending, so I'm taking this smudge tool. I also like to use round brush. I sometimes use the smudge brush, but I will go with round brush first. I like to take the opacity of the brush for some 50% medium and the brush size around medium as well. And now I'm just gently going over. You don't want to be super harsh with your brush because this is what comes out of it. But I'm just really gently touching the surface of the iPad to make everything smooth. And this is how the blending looks at this moment. I'm definitely gonna put more, so I will just come back to these colors that I used and I will add more of them and I will just keep on blending everything into each other until I'm happy with this. It basically works just like marker drawings or like pencil drawings. You put layers of color and you blend it all together until the point you're just happy with it. And like you can see, I'm going in between sizes of brush, the pressure that I put while putting in the color. So it all depends on your personal preference. There's really no technique that I will advise you to use. It's just adding more layers, blending it in, adding more color, shading more, blending, and so on, so on. So it's really personal. If you like only flat layers of colors, then you don't need to do all that blending. But I like my works being quite blended, so I will just go over millions of times to make everything seamless and to make everything basically look good, in my opinion. And at the same time I'm working on my shadows, I also like to add some highlights. So I press over the most highlighted areas. I take the color chart and I'm just taking slightly lighter color and I'm putting it in the places where I want my highlights to be. And this is a little bit too dark, so I'm taking a little bit lighter color and I'm just going over those areas that I want them to be highlighted. And at this point I'm gonna leave this coloring like it is. I think it's quite good so far, but now I just want to build up more colors around it. I just want to fill in the details, so then it gives me perspective if I should shade it in more or if this is enough. So I don't do this typical step-by-step drawing. Now I do face, now I do hair. I just like to go back and forth in between steps, so that gives me perspective of what I should add, if I should change something, if I should enhance something. So I hope you understand what I mean by that, and well, you will see it throughout the process. So now what I like to do is I'm just gonna erase the eyeball area and I'm gonna focus on coloring the eyes in. And along with the eye color, I will add also all the face details like eyebrows, some makeup, lips, and all that good stuff basically. And then I'm gonna move on with hair. So obviously I'm gonna add new layer on top of it, and I'm gonna start adding my details. So when it comes to how I'm adding the details, I like to work on multiple layers so I can come back to each element of the drawing anytime that I want. So for example, I will color in the eyebrows on a separate layer, I will color in the eyes on a separate layer, lips, and so on. So in this manner, once I have multiple layers for each element of the drawing, I am able to come back to any of these elements anytime that I want, and that is really convenient when you're drawing digitally. And when it comes to the actual drawing in the details, it's really personal preference. I'm just switching in between the brushes. I'm taking whatever works for me for each element of the drawing. So I just don't have any kind of technique that I'd like to work in while drawing in eyebrows, eyes and so on. I'm just experimenting with brushes, with opacity, with the size of brush, and I'm just basically working with things that work for me. And now when it comes to hair coloring, it basically works pretty much like coloring in and shading the face. First of all, I'm putting the flat layer of color of my base color. Even though I want my hair to be black, I'm not taking the pure black color to be my base. I'm taking slightly grayish black, so I have room to add more shadows, which is going to be black. And I have room to add highlights, which are going to be lighter gray color. And well, first of all, I'm putting a flat layer of color, then I'm putting in the shadows, I'm blending it in, and then at the end I'm putting some brush strokes that will imitate the hair strands, and I'm putting on some highlights in light gray or even white, and I'm blending everything in multiple times till the point that I'm really satisfied with how my hair is looking. And this is how my drawing looks at the moment, and honestly what I have left to do is to put some highlights on the hair and add some hair strands. I'm gonna do it probably with the lines brush because I like to use it pretty much for everything. Then I'm just gonna focus on little details like highlights on her lip. I'll add the color to her nails, and I'm just gonna finesse the whole drawing, so there's not really much to guide you through the process, honestly, but you would be able to see everything what I'm doing kind of step by step. And that's the finished drawing, and well, I need to admit that I like it really much, and I'm glad that I managed to show you the Procreate tutorial step by step. I really hope that you find it helpful and that you're gonna use some of my advice. Let me know if you're actually gonna use any of these. I hope so. And well, I'll be wrapping up this video. Like I said, I really hope you find this video helpful, and if you want some more Procreate tutorials, then just let me know. And for now, I hope you guys are having an amazing day, whatever you're doing. I hope you're gonna manage to create something today, draw something. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I love you all, and I can't wait to see you in my next videos. Bye guys, take care.
I'm just going with the gut, never had a doubt, felt like this is just a must. Put me in perspective, I'm the deepest in the cut. Everybody tuning in, but this is just for us now.